Beloved, you're welcome to another Connubial Paradise broadcast, a marriage and relationship program that seeks to bring the wisdom of God to you on how to live a successful marriage life while fulfilling God's eternal plan and purpose. This program equally makes available to singles information on how to live a successful single life while waiting for a marriage proposal. On today's episode, we are going to continue with how to create an atmosphere of connubial paradise, part 6. How to create an atmosphere of connubial paradise, part 6. In our last episode, we spoke about the major differences between the male brain and the female brain. We said a lack of understanding of these differences may stress the marriage union, that an understanding of these differences will enable couples to know how to pull the strength of their differences sin to improve upon their marriage. So in the last episode, we said that men are for conquest and women are for nurture. Men are for conquest and women are for nurture. We said we must understand conquest versus nurture. Conquest versus nurture. While men find fulfillment in accomplishing their goals, in fulfilling their dreams, women find fulfillment in nurturing the family that God has given them. The people for whom they care, the people for whom they expend themselves. We equally spoke about provision versus security. Provision versus security. That men have been wired to make provision available to the family. And not only do they provide leadership, they also provide resources and they also provide care. And we said women help to bring the emotional stability in the family. And they also go the long way to contribute meaningfully to the upkeep of the family. We spoke about respect versus love. Respect versus love. We said that the number one need of every man is respect. And the number one need of every woman is love. Love will create an enabling environment for a woman to be able to deploy all the giftings that God has invested in her. And respect will create an enabling environment in a man, both emotionally and otherwise, to help him deploy all the giftings that God has invested into him. And finally, we spoke about serve instead of seeking to be served. Serve instead of seeking to be served. We said the husband and the wife should compete at pleasing each other. If a husband makes it a goal to please the spouse and the wife makes it a goal to please the husband, I tell you, their home will be an avenue of connubial paradise. Their home will be a haven of marital bliss. Why? Because both are endeavoring, both are engaging everything that is within them to please the other spouse. So whenever your spouse says or does something that baffles you, you just experienced one of the differences between a male and a female. However, once you understand how differently God has created the male brain from the female brain, then you can pull these differences and use them to build a sustainable and enduring and loving marriage. However, once you understand how differently God has designed the male brain and the female brain, you can learn how to use those differences well in your marriage union. When this is the case, then the gender differences won't alienate you and your spouse. Instead, they will complement you both to strengthen your marriage. But here's how it works. I got this information from the editor's note on was Larry Moore and Barbara Larry Moore's 2008 book. The male and the female brain are dramatically different anatomically, chemically, hormonally, and physiologically. These differences cause fundamental different ways of thinking, feeling, and behaving. So we need to appreciate and honor the differences for our marriages to thrive and for our marriages to enjoy the totality of God's giftings in the lives of the couple. Recognize that it was God who designed men and women to be different and to accomplish good purposes. Instead of being frustrated by the gender differences, decide to respect them and learn how to work with them instead of against them. So we'll need to understand the difference between how men and women process information. The male brain is highly systemized with a high ability to compartmentalize, a low ability to multitask, a high ability to control emotions, a low relational orientation, a high project orientation, a high ability to zone out, a tendency to act first and think later when faced with stress, an aggressive response to risks, and a tendency to compete with other males. The female brain, however, is highly empathetic with a low ability to compartmentalize, a high ability to multitask, a low ability to control emotions, a relational orientation, a low project orientation, a low ability to zone out, a tendency to think and feel before acting in response to stress, a cautious response to risks, and a tendency to cooperate with other females. These are the broad strokes. These may not apply exactly as I've stated them to every male or to every female, but on the average, these are the results of research on how the male brain functions and how the female brain functions. For our marriages to forge ahead, we need to equally understand how men and women communicate. While men's conversation tend to focus on facts, women's conversation tend to emphasize the feelings behind the facts. You hear statements like, "Don't you care how I feel?" So a woman does not necessarily hear what a man has said, a woman feels what a man has said. So, husbands, when you are talking to your wife, you must be careful about the emotions that go with the words because invariably the woman will keep the emotions more than the instruction or the information that you have communicated onto her. So a woman will first feel the communication before she understands what has been communicated. So you have to be careful. This will enable all husbands to choose their words deliberately and to make sure that they communicate the necessary emotions that they want their wives to receive and respond to. Men solve problems by thinking about one issue at a time, usually on their own. The women generally need to talk through problems with someone else to process their thoughts. This is very, very, very important. Women talk through their problems with someone else to process their thoughts. A few weeks ago, I was privileged to speak at a couples event, and we had a moment for open discussion. And one of the contributions made by this friend, who is a barrister at law, he said that whenever there is a situation in his house, the wife would talk. He wouldn't see the beginning, he wouldn't see the end, he wouldn't see the head, he wouldn't see the tail. And the woman will not provide any solution. All what she will do will be to talk. What does that mean? What that means is that women generally talk about the problem and not necessarily about the solution to the problem. So a good husband must be able to decode that. When the woman is talking, you allow her to express herself, and when she finishes, you pose questions. With the questions, you will help the woman to process her thought to the solution that is needed for that situation to be solved. This is very, very important. For example, your wife can come to you and say that, okay, this week we ate rice on Monday, we ate plantain on Tuesday, we ate this, that, and that the other days. So today, what can we eat? So the role of the husband is to listen to her and to suggest meals that have not been eaten so that the woman can choose from today, or gari and soup, or something to swallow with soup. Once you do that, you will help the person navigate through and eventually land at what the person desires. I've had such in my home severally. My wife would come and ask, honey, what do you want to eat today? I say, whatever you choose to prepare. Oh, we ate this the other day, we ate that the other day, we ate that the other day, we ate that the other day. She's not talking about the solution, she's talking about the problem. So I'll ask her now, okay, if we ate this the other day, we ate this the other day, what do you think we can eat now? Then she will suggest, okay, let's eat this. I said, that's done. Go ahead and have that prepared. And she'll give instructions and that meal would be prepared. So women generally talk about the problem. Then men, a husband must be there to process the thought of the wife so that the solution be given. We must also know that there are occasions where a woman just merely wants to talk. She wants to empty her heart of her cares. If she goes out at work and she comes back and there was something that happened at her place of work, she would want to talk and talk and talk to debrief the husband about all what happened to her on that day. So the role of the husband on that occasion may not be to process her thoughts and come up with a solution. The role may be just to listen and empathize with her. Men approach situation with a strong desire to make decisions and take action, whereas women sometimes just want to talk about how they feel about some situations. This is very, very important. So on that occasion, your role is to listen. Let the person pour out her emotions and describe how she feels about a particular situation. I've had occasions where my wife would come back from work and she would start narrating a story to me. And with my analytical mind to bring solutions, I'll tell her, okay, I'm going to do this, that, and that. And she would say to me, I didn't say you should do anything. I have the situation under control. I just want you to listen. So I have learned over the years that I must know when to listen and when to know that she needs help to process and come up with a solution. Men tend to speak directly and use words literally, while women tend to speak indirectly. This is very, very important. In my home, I remember several years ago, the Lord had to rebuke me and correct me on an issue. Once I told my wife, you don't know how to communicate. This is because my background in education has to do with communication. I did 2 postgraduate degrees in journalism and mass communication. So when I want to give facts, I channel the facts appropriately and I communicate whatever I want to communicate so simply. But that is not the case with my wife. And I wanted my wife to be doing the same. So the Lord told me, learn to understand her communication style and so that you'll be able to decipher whatever she intends to relate to you. When she encodes any information, you should be able to decode it once you understand her style of communication. And that has helped me over the years. For instance, if my wife wants to tell me that breakfast items are finished in the house, what she would say is, won't the children eat breakfast today? She will throw a question at me. And immediately I would know that, okay, the breakfast items are finished. I need to buy new ones. So women tend to speak indirectly because that is how they are wired. Again, there are some women that are a little different, but on the average, this is the situation. So, wives, give your husbands the time and space he needs to think through issues on his own and be willing to work with him to find solutions you can both act on and speak to him in direct ways. ways you can clearly understand. So sisters, you can speak in direct way. One of the ways you can get your wife to speak to you directly is by asking questions. When she speaks to you indirectly, just pose questions for clarity. And I tell you, by the time she answers the questions, you'll know exactly what she wants. Beloved, we'll take a break from here. Beloved, you are welcome back. Today, we have been looking at how to create an atmosphere of connubial paradise in our marriage, part 6. And we have said that the male brain functions differently from the female brain. We said these differences should not alienate the family. Instead, husband and wife should learn from these differences, pull strength from them, and build up their family. We have said that the male is anatomically, chemically, emotionally, and physiologically different from the female. And these differences come with differences in thinking, differences in acting, and differences in behavior. An understanding of this will help you build marital bliss in your home and will not tear your home down. We have looked at the differences on how men and women process information. And finally, we have equally looked at how men and women communicate. Why women tend to spend their time talking about the problem, men spend their time thinking about the solution to the problem. Beloved, I hope that this episode has greatly blessed your life. You've known that your wife is significantly different from you, and she must not be like you, act like you, and speak like you for you to understand her and for you to be able to build marital bliss in your home. With the information we have dispensed here, I trust that you will use the information to build marital bliss in your home in Jesus' mighty name.